This is a Suzuki Ignis. It's not just any old Ignis. Oh no. This is my 2007 Suzuki Ignis GL VVT. And in this video, I'm gonna review it. Let's kick off this tour with a look around the exterior. Starting off, of course, here at the front. I'm not gonna lie, it's not this car's best angle. I mean, there's just not a lot going on. One thing that is going on that I absolutely loathe, however, are these. Now, in any modern car, you'd have fog lamps in there, but for some reason, in 2007, here in the UK, front fog lights just weren't a thing, or they weren't compulsory, or they just weren't on all cars. And so, yeah, these are a thing. Hate them. Why? Just no. One thing that makes up for them somewhat is this lovely electric blue metallic paintwork, which I must say is sparkling away very nicely indeed in this summer sunshine. Under the hood we have a 1.3 litre petrol engine, which drives the front two wheels via a 5-speed manual gearbox, and can put out 107 horsepower. On that note, let's move down the side now, and this is where things start to improve. You see, that sloping bonnet and bodywork at the front, from this perspective, actually looks, well, not sporty, but sleek, in my opinion. Meanwhile, the squared-off, boxy back end portrays something slightly more practical and utilitarian. And same with the roof bars. Yes! One thing that doesn't scream utilitarian, however, are the door mirrors, which are a bit small and are also finished off with this black plastic trim stuff, which, not gonna lie, back in 2007 probably looked great, you know, as instead of having body coloured door mirrors, you had black ones, you had that contrast. But here in 2024, I can't help but feel that they do look just a tad bit cheap and nasty. Likewise with the door handles, which have got a very similar sort of thing going on. One great thing about the door mirrors, however, are just how flat they lie when you fold them in. Look at that! It's like a flat pack car. Great. Here at the rear of the Ignis then, and there is no expense spared, with a nice shiny badging, and a sort of diffusory type slot in the bumper. One thing that isn't so good though, the gas struts. You see, they're plenty strong enough to actually support the weight of the boot lid, but they don't do this bit. And so you've got to be careful, or else if you don't open the boot properly, you may well crack your head on there, as I have done on one or two occasions. That's the wind doing that, by the way, not the gas struts. Trying to prove me wrong there. Anyway, while we're at it, might as well have a look in the boot proper. First things first, this parcel shelf didn't actually come with this car. I believe it came off of a 2005 Suzuki Ignis GL VVT. Probably one which was going to get scrapped. I don't know, we bought it online, but anyway. As soon as it didn't actually come with this car, well, let's get it out of the way. It does fit in the bottom, by the way. It does fit in the bottom, so that's a bonus. It's not many parcel shelves these days do. But anyway, listen. Let's get that out of the way and have a look in the boot proper. So let's admire the boot in all its glory then. Oh, well, I say that. All you've really got in terms of features back here are a light and a couple of speakers. There's not even a 12-volt socket. In fact, there's only one singular 12-volt socket on this car. I'll show you that a little bit later on. But, but one thing that you do get back here, though, actually, is a spare wheel. And it's a proper pucker jobby. Look at that. Actually, while I was just putting that false floor down, I just noticed that there is a little bit of a lip for you to load stuff in and out of the boot, but it's not that bad. It's certainly not as bad as new Ignises. There's also a scuff plate as well to help try and prevent you from scratching that lovely electric blue metallic paintwork, which now that the sun's gone in isn't sparkling quite so much, but nevertheless still looks nice. Although actually, having said that, the rear bumper does protrude out quite a way, so you may well just catch the edge there if you're unlucky. This being the GL VVT model, it has a longer wheelbase over the standard Ignis, and so the boot capacity actually goes from just over 200 litres all the way up to just shy of 300 litres. And that capacity can of course be increased further by folding down the rear seats. Now, as you will have just seen, folding them down, you can actually do that from standing back here. You don't have to go round to the doors. Of course you can do, but yeah, you don't have to, which is great, and that's actually an advantage of this car being a bit smaller than an SUV, or an estate car especially, because with that, you wouldn't be able to reach through. You'd either need tabs or buttons or whatever, or I should actually have to just go round and do it through the doors. Downside to when these rear seats are folded down, however, there is a huge lip, and so trying to slide larger objects to the front, yeah, no, that's a bit more difficult. Can do it, but yeah, that is a really big lip, to be fair. But anyway, speaking of the rear seats, let's go check them out. Here in the rear of the Ignis then, and can't lie, it's not a bad place to be. You know, the seats are plenty comfy enough. There's a decent amount of headroom. People over 6 foot may start to struggle, but you know, that's alright. Plenty of knee room as well. I mean, actually, this being the longer wheelbase version, you get a lot more knee room. I mean, this seat is in my comfortable driving position, and I'm just shy of 6 foot. And so being able to have this much legroom with that seat in position and then with me here is quite incredible for this sort of car. In terms of under-thigh support then, well, the seat base is actually a decent way off the floor. However, if you tuck your feet right the way back, which you can't actually do because there's some weird lump or hump here, but if you were to, then as you can see, you wouldn't have much under-thigh support. But thankfully, you can actually stretch your feet out underneath both the passenger and driver's seats. Look at that. You can stretch right the way out, get comfy very easily. However, while you may well have a lot of foot space to stretch out forwards, you don't have a lot width-wise, because there is a huge hump in the floor, which isn't that tall, thankfully, but it is really quite wide. That is probably one of the widest I've ever seen. Now, you can get this car with all-wheel drive, and, well, if you were to go for the 4x4 version, then of course you have a shaft from the engine at the front, right the way down the length of the vehicle to the rear axle. He says, try not to get too technical here, but this is front-wheel drive, so that is not necessary. Because if you sat in the central seat back here, then you are properly straddling that fella. That, coupled with the width of this vehicle, means that carrying 3 passengers here in the rear for long or even short haul journeys is not going to be much fun. You can of course do it because you have the central seatbelt, one point of which fastens to the right of you, the other conventional fastening goes to the left of you. But that really impedes on visibility out the back window if you've got that in place. And also B, like I say, you're not going to want to carry 3 people in the back of this car. That being said, it's not actually a huge amount better for 2 rear passengers. You see, while the doors provide somewhere to put your arm, there's no central armrest or nothing with cup holders in or anything like that. In fact, the only proper cup holder you've got back here is this fella, which won't even fit a big bottle. Look at that, won't fit. You have to go down a size or 2 to that, and then it will fit. But even so, it's not particularly deep, and so that is just going to fling out when you're driving along. So, yeah, that's probably good for cans, but that's about it. One other thing that's not so good back here are the rear windows, because you actually have to roll them down yourself. And they don't even go all the way down. Look at that. Yeah. Although that being said, I'm not hugely complacent about having to roll them down yourself. Only insofar as my mum actually had a brand new Ignis as a courtesy car just a couple of years ago, right? And believe it or not, that thing had windows that you had to roll down yourself. And that was brand new. And like I said, that was only a couple of years ago. For a 21 reg car, you'd expect there to be an electric rear window, would you not?
No.
So, you know, Suzuki, get your game together. That being said though, they've actually put really good door bins in the Ignis, which will fit this size bottle. And will even fit this size bottle. Yes! And even while you've got a bottle in situ, you have also got a little bit of extra space to store other items as well. You've also got further storage back here as a wallet, which has a B&M receipt in it. Okay, but that's good for putting your trusty old Atlas in. And oh, what's that on the front of the Atlas? Is that a Family 3 TV sticker telling you to subscribe? I believe it is. Well, you better do what it says, because the Atlas is always right. Yeah. Right. Pop that fella in there. Lovely old job. Tell you what the loveliest of all jobs is, however. Check this out, right. Ladies and gentlemen, you can adjust the positioning of the backrests. Look at this, so you can sit bolt upright. You can sit like this for whatever reason, or you can sit how a normal human being sits and get really nice and comfortable. Oh, one other good thing back here is the fact that you've got little tabs just here, which you can put the other two rear seat belts, the outer ones, you can put them into there, and that keeps them out of the way and avoids them getting snagged when you fold down the rear seats thusly. And I'm now squashed. One other thing to mention in the rear here are Isofix anchor points, which have no silly covers on or nothing, and straightforward in there, but at the same time you can also still cover them over nicely. And considering that this is a 17-year-old car, those covers are actually still really, really good. Okay, so, having freed myself, I'm now sat in the front, and well, once again, the seats are plenty comfy enough, really comfy actually considering the age, you know, there's not a lot of wear on them at all for a 17-year-old car. There's plenty of adjustment in them as well, less so with the front passenger seat because you can't adjust the height of that. Well, you can't really adjust the height of the driver's seat either because I tried when I first bought the car and couldn't, so I had to get the lady to help me, and I haven't really touched it since, but no, obviously you can, it's probably just a bit stiff. The door bins, they are pretty good. They can fit standard size water bottle and a bigger one as well. Did I get slightly Australian then? They can fit that sort of size bottle. Any bigger than that is going to struggle, but you can fit that sort of size bottle in there as well. And once again, just like the rear door bins, you have got space to put other items as well. In terms of the glove box, that is a decent size, especially thanks to the fuse box being relocated on the driver's side. I don't get why foreign manufacturers don't actually do that anymore. I mean, my mum's got a Suzuki, she's got a Suzuki Vitara, 10 years younger than this, exactly, and the fuse box is over there, because Suzuki, just along with all other foreign manufacturers, just decided to stop moving the fuse box across. But thankfully this car, the fuse box is over here, along with the switch to turn on the headlamps, and adjust the height of them, and turn the rear fog light on as well. Obviously there's nothing for the front fog lights, don't bloody have one. Or two, or any. Anyway, getting back on topic then, yeah, like I say, the glove box is a decent size. It's not damped or anything, but you wouldn't expect it to be for this sort of car. Further practicality, with these massive storage wells in the central console, you could probably fit two hands in there. I could definitely fit one. Obviously my other one's holding my phone, which I'm using to record audio, but yeah, you could fit two hands in there, that's how big they are. Or two of my hands, anyway. So yeah, so loads of storage there. Further storage wells down here. And also the one and only 12-volt sockets located down here. Along with a cigarette lighter. Look at that, cigarette lighter. Don't get them in cars anymore, do you? Moving on to the climate controls then. Nothing to write home about. There's no aircon. There is a blanked button, which is where you'd normally turn the aircon on, but this particular car wasn't spec'd up with that, so it doesn't have aircon. So yes, it's got a stupid blanked, useless button. Not a big fan though, so I'll accept that one because I know what it does or would do. What I won't accept, however, are the two buttons down here by the handbrake, because, well, I've looked up loads of different versions of the Ignis online, and I can't find a single one that actually has a use for either of those two, so why are they there? Anyway, listen, moving up to the stereo system now. It's complete with a CD player. Don't see many of them these days either. Yeah, and actually, some would say that's old-fashioned, but to be honest, I actually use the CD player more than I use the radio, because you can only get 6 radio stations on this. So yeah, I just put CD in, and obviously with a CD you can, within reason, get just about any music and burn it to the CD and then put it in. I'm saying that, though, like everybody these days knows how to burn stuff to a CD. They don't. Moving higher up, then, we have a little screen in there, which displays 4 main things. It displays information for the stereo, it displays the time, it displays the outside temperature, which is one of my favourite features in a car. There's also something else, which, when I was flicking through the manual, as you do, I came across something, or I read somewhere that it said something about displaying instantaneous fuel economy. But the numbers I've had on that are between 4 point something and 7 point something. And so if I'm doing at best 7 miles per gallon, something catastrophic has occurred. Because that is terrible. I'm guessing it must be some other kind of units if it is fuel economy. Because yeah, 7 point something or even 4 point something miles per gallon. That is terrible. In terms of the dashboard, well, we have a completely analog display. There is one teeny tiny little screen which displays your mileage, which, in case you're interested, this car has 68,000 miles on the clock, which really ain't bad for a 17-year-old car. I think that's probably part of the reason why this thing actually looks and drives so well. Yeah, other than that, it's all analog. Although that makes it simpler to use, I guess, so it's not all bad. Tell you what else isn't bad at all, right? You know, I was talking about how practical this car is. Well, underneath the front passenger seat, you have this. You have a little tray. I don't know whether it is actually a tray, because it's got all sorts of numbers and letters and weird stuff on it, but it's on runners, and it seems like a tray. So yeah, anyway, listen, I've got a cool tray underneath the passenger seat. I'm just going to shove that in the footwell, because it's a right faff to put back under again. That is one downside of that.
A few moments later.
But nevertheless, that is a really cool feature, and I only discovered it yesterday when I was cleaning the car. I gave the car a full valet, and yeah, and I was vacuuming underneath the seat, and I thought, well, dang, there's a tray. Fair enough. Tell you what else is fair enough. You have electric windows here in the front, and then just above that is the adjuster for the door mirrors. I'm not going to lie, it's rather unconventional, weird, quirky. Yeah. One thing that I'm definitely not so happy about in this car are the vanity mirrors. You see, you do actually get one on the driver's side as well as on the front passenger side, but neither of them are illuminated. Oh, and the other thing is as well, right, you can't even switch the central light on, because in most cars you normally have a light here. In actual fact, the one in the back does this, where you can either have it always on, always off, or just come on when the doors are open. This one, though, it has a mind of its own. Finally then, just very briefly, let's talk about the steering column. You cannot adjust where it is. That's unusual. Although, to be fair, that is actually pretty much perfect for me. Something that's not perfect for me, however, the horn isn't located in the middle of the steering wheel. It's actually like you've got buttons here. I've not actually tested it yet. I'm not going to do it here because this is a nice, peaceful, quiet boatyard. And something else which is, well, not necessarily weird, but a bit unusual, is the fact that there's no like switches on the end of the stalks. You just push them in about 10 different ways, and each different way you push them, or pull them, or click them, or whatever else, they do a different thing. Anyway, listen, to conclude, the cabin of this thing, it's nice enough, you know, it's not perfect, but I like it, it does the job, and there are far worse cars out there. And I think that just about sums this thing up, really. So, there you have it then. That concludes the tour of this car. Now, normally at this point I would simply end off the video. However, this being my car and everything, and of course having obtained some supposedly important piece of pink plastic, I'm gonna take it for a spin. Hee hee! Alright then, so, starting off in and around town then, can't lie, this poodles along nicely, you know, the steering is, well, it's responsive, you can feel what you're doing, the wheels go exactly where you tell them to, however at the same time the steering isn't too heavy, also decent amount of acceleration if you need it, as the camera just demonstrated there by flopping backwards, but at the same time also the brakes are alright as well, you know, you can slow down if necessary, the brakes aren't quite as good as the other two vehicles which I've driven, but then you've got to remember one of them is less than a year old and the other one is about 7 years old. You know, this is 17 years old, so the brakes aren't going to be perfect, and don't get me wrong, it does stop when you need it to. Yeah, so overall, for pootling around in and around town, this car is very good indeed. And it's also, although it's a slightly longer wheelbase model of the Ignis, it's also still going to be fairly easy to park because it's still not a particularly big car, but also mentioning that longer wheelbase, that of course gives you bigger boot capacity as we've mentioned, and so therefore you can fit a little bit more shopping in there. In terms of driving on the motorway or dual carriageway, it's fairly alright, you know, it's not the quickest up to speed, but it does get up to speed, and it does so decently enough. The ride, it does tend to get a little bit more bouncy the quicker you go, however my main complaint for higher speeds is the noise. Road noise ain't an issue, due to the fact it's got fairly small wheels, however wind noise, and the noise coming from the engine in particular, they will get on your nerves on long journeys. In terms of driving on a country road, this thing, again, it's fairly alright. Because it's actually quite high up for a hatchback, it has pretty good ground clearance. And the suspension itself, a little bit bumpy, but you'd prefer that over being too firm on this sort of road. It's also a fairly nippy car, however you wouldn't want to go too quickly around the bends because it's quite tall, so it's got quite a high centre of gravity. And that therefore leads to a bit of lean as you're chucking it through a corner. In terms of visibility, well, the dashboard and the bonnet actually all slope away very nicely to give you great visibility out the front. In terms of out the sides, well, the mirrors, they're not huge, but you can see what you need to see. And the windows themselves next to you or either side of you, again, you know, they're a decent size, you can see out of them. Seeing out the back, that's probably the worst place in terms of visibility, but even so, it isn't terrible. You know, you can see out the back, it's just because where the brake light is housed, there's sort of like a bit of casing that sort of intrudes slightly into your visibility, and there's also where the rear seat belt is sort of hanging there out of the ceiling again because of how that's all rigged. That, well, actually you can see the label from that flapping around sometimes, and that does, or it could distract you. That being said though, visibility with actually the rear seat belt locked in, then it's impeded somewhat. So yeah, so as soon as I'd got this car, I unclipped that, put it in the ceiling, because yeah, now the visibility is pretty bad with that in the way. But yeah, generally you can see out the back, you can see what you need to see. The back of the car isn't that far away because, you know, it's not a huge car, so yeah, all is well. And there's far worse cars in terms of visibility. Although you haven't actually got any cameras or anything or parking sensors with this, whereas the other two cars that I've driven, one of them had a camera and the other one had a camera and a parking sensor. So, or parking sensors, sorry, should I say. So yeah, that going from a car that has cameras and parking sensors into something that doesn't have anything was a little bit of a shock, but yeah, like I say, visibility all round is really rather good, so you know, there's no real need for them, and you shouldn't become reliant upon them really anyway. You know, you should primarily use your own sort of judgment. Coolio, so, thank you very much for watching this review. If you have watched until this far, then at the top of the description there's a little bonus just for you, which will actually reveal the name I have given to my Ignis. But anyway, listen, that's all for this video, so I'll catch you all next Sunday. Till then though, bye for now.